They say that true friendship withstands everything. But what if it endures even death? Most people believe that promises are just words thrown to the wind, forgotten over time. But what if I told you that some promises are strong enough to cross the boundaries of life and death? This is the story of a young man who learned the hard way that oaths can be invisible chains, and that love, when misunderstood, can become a prison. Imagine making a promise of eternal friendship to someone who becomes the most important person in your life. Now, imagine that this person leaves too soon, and your promise does not die with them. Strange occurrences, whispers in the night, objects moving on their own. What seemed like longing turned into a calling, a bond that refused to be broken. But how far does the weight of a promise go? And more importantly, how do we free those we love without losing ourselves in the process? This is not just a story about the supernatural. It is a powerful reminder of the impact of words and the necessity of learning to let go. The young man in this tale had to face his greatest fears to understand that loving does not mean holding on, but rather allowing the other to move forward. And now, I ask you, have you ever found yourself bound to something you should have let go of? Words thrown to the wind may seem harmless, but some carry a weight that transcends time. In his innocence, the young man believed that a promise of eternal friendship was merely a gesture of affection without major consequences. But there is one detail that few consider. Words have power, and the emotions behind them can make them unbreakable. He did not know it, but his oath would surpass the limits of life and death, tying his soul to his friends in a way neither of them could have foreseen. The problem is that fate has no mercy for those who speak without understanding the depth of their words. When his only friend passed away, what should have been a farewell became a summons, an echo of something unfinished. The bonds we create do not simply vanish because we wish them to. The young man felt that something was different, as if a part of him was still trapped in the moment of that promise. And he was not wrong. The words we speak shape reality in ways we do not always perceive. Since then, strange coincidences began to happen. A whisper in the middle of the night, the feeling of being watched when alone, objects moving without explanation. He wanted to believe it was just his mind playing tricks on him, but with each passing day, the signs became clearer. Something, or someone, had not completely departed. And the most terrifying part? Everything indicated that the reason for this was him. He had made a promise. And promises, especially those made from the heart, cannot be broken so easily. The wisdom of the elders is rarely taken seriously until it is too late. His grandmother always told him that promises of eternal love should never be made lightly, not even between friends. There were stories, as old as time itself, of souls remaining trapped in the world of the living because their words created bonds impossible to sever. Like so many others, the young man laughed at these stories, believing they were merely legends meant to scare children. But now, surrounded by unexplainable signs, he began to wonder, what if his grandmother had been right all along? A woman told stories of families tormented by spirits that had not found rest because someone had called them back, even if unintentionally. In one of the stories, a bride promised to wait for her beloved forever, and when he died in the war, his soul wandered without peace, for she never stopped calling him in her prayers. Words have weight, boy, she would say. What you speak to the wind may be carried away by time, or bring something back. But the young man never paid attention. Until now. Until he realized that his own heart was an anchor, holding someone who should have already departed. And then came the inevitable question, what do you do when you realize that a promise was too strong? How do you undo something that has already been sealed by fate? His grandmother spoke of this as well, about the need to learn to let go, to release those we love so they can follow their path. But was he ready to accept that? Could his heart bear to say a true goodbye? Even though the fear was real, something had to be done. And soon. The promise he made was not just verbal. It had a symbol, a tangible object that carried the weight of that vow. A ring. Small, simple, but heavy with meaning. It was a gift from his friend, a reminder that, no matter what happened, they would always be together. The young man wore it every day, without fail, as a silent pact between the two of them. But he never imagined that this same ring would become an invisible chain, keeping a spirit trapped between worlds. He began to notice something strange about the object. At times, it felt colder than usual, as if absorbing the chill of the beyond. Other times, it seemed heavier than it should be, as if carrying something more than just gold. But the worst were the moments when it mysteriously disappeared, only to reappear in impossible places. He tried to rationalize. Perhaps he was just being paranoid, but deep down, he knew something was wrong. It was as if the ring didn't want to be forgotten, as if someone was holding on to it, even from the other side. Now he understood what his grandmother meant about bonds that cannot be easily broken. The ring was not just a keepsake. It was an anchor, a link between two worlds, an open passage allowing his friend to remain. But how long could he ignore the obvious? How long could he pretend it was just a coincidence? Time was running out, and if he didn't make a decision soon, he might lose control over something far greater than he had imagined. What started as small signs soon became impossible to ignore. The young man began to feel a constant presence around him, a familiar yet unsettling energy. The sweet scent of his friend's perfume filled the air without explanation, even when all the windows were shut. Doors closed on their own, shadows moved at the edge of his vision, and at night, he heard whispers that seemed to come from within his own mind. It was not just longing. It was something real, something that wanted to be noticed. The manifestations grew stronger. One evening, upon arriving home, he found the ring on his table, spinning on its own, as if an invisible hand were playing with it. On another night, while he slept, he felt a cold touch on his shoulder and woke up with a start, only to see faint finger marks on his skin. This was no longer a matter of imagination, it was a call. His friend had not completely left, and now, she was trying to communicate with him in the only way spirits can. Grew, but along with it, an unsettling certainty. The bond between them had not been broken. Something in his promise kept his friend tethered to the world of the living, and until he figured out how to undo that tie, the manifestations would only get worse. But how does one break a promise that transcends even death? He needed answers, and fast. And if there was anyone who could help him, he knew exactly where he had to go. Desperate for answers, the young man sought help from the only person who could understand both the weight of promises and the mysteries of death, the town priest. The man, with a serene gaze and a firm voice, listened intently to every word, never interrupting. When the young man finished recounting everything that had been happening, the priest only sighed, as if he already knew what it was about. Son, there are bonds that tie us beyond life, but not all of them should be kept. To love also means to learn to let go. The solution was neither simple nor painless. The priest explained that to set his friend free, he needed to get rid of the ring, the object that sealed his promise. As long as you hold on to this symbol, her spirit will remain trapped, unable to move on. True love does not imprison, it liberates. The young man felt his heart clench. How could he simply let go of something that meant so much to him? The ring was the last memory of his friend, proof that their friendship still existed. But deep down, he knew the priest was right. Doubt consumed him. What if by letting go of the ring, he lost her forever? What if he never felt her presence again? But at the same time, he knew he couldn't go on like this, neither could she. The priest advised him to do it with love, not as an abandonment, but as an act of farewell. Only then would his friend find peace. Only then could he move forward himself. Now, all that remained was to find the right place to set her free. He knew exactly where he needed to go. The tree where it all began, where he and his friend had promised to always be together. The place that had once been a symbol of their bond now became the stage for his most difficult farewell. The young man walked there at dusk, feeling the wind whisper through the leaves, as if nature itself understood what was about to happen. In his hands, the ring felt heavier than ever, as if resisting the fate that awaited it. With a heavy heart, he knelt before the tree and held the ring for a moment, feeling the energy imbued in it. He closed his eyes and, for the first time, spoke aloud, as if his friend were still there. He thanked her for the moments they shared, for the laughter, for the stories they created together. He asked for forgiveness for keeping her bound unknowingly, for making a promise without understanding the true impact of his words. With a deep sigh, he placed the ring among the tree's roots, surrendering his friend to time, to fate, to eternity. For a brief moment, silence became absolute. Then, a soft breeze passed over him, and for some reason, the young man felt at peace. The presence that had been with him for so long seemed to dissolve into the air, not as something lost, but as something that had finally found its place. His friend was no longer trapped. He knew that, but the question that now echoed was, does love disappear when you learn to let go? Or does it transform into something even more powerful? Following days, the young man noticed that something had changed. The emptiness he feared never came. Instead, there was a lightness, a quiet certainty that his friend was now where she was meant to be. The love that united them had not disappeared. It had simply transformed. Now, it was no longer a bond of possession, but of freedom. He still felt her, not as a presence that haunted him, but as a subtle warmth in his chest, a sweet memory that would stay with him forever. One night, as he walked alone under the stars, something unexpected happened. A soft whisper, not of fear, but of farewell, echoed in his mind. Thank you. It was the confirmation that she had departed in peace. For the first time since her passing, he smiled without pain, without guilt. The promise that once bound them was no longer a chain, but a testament that true love never dies. It only learns to exist in different ways. Now, he understood the most important lesson of all. Loving someone doesn't mean holding on to them forever, but allowing them to follow their own path, even when that means letting them go. And so, he moved forward with his life, not as someone who had lost a friend, but as someone who had learned that some stories don't end with death. They simply find a new way to continue. What this story teaches us goes far beyond the supernatural. How many times do we hold on to something or someone, unable to move forward? Whether it's a promise from the past, unresolved pain, or even a fear of letting go, we often become prisoners of our own words. But here's the truth that few have the courage to accept. To truly love means knowing when to let go. And now I ask you, is there something in your life that still holds you back? A promise you made to yourself or someone else that, without realizing it, has become a chain? What do you need to release to finally find peace? Maybe it's time to reflect on that. Because, just like the young man in this story, your freedom might be just one step away. All it takes is the courage to let go. If this story made you think, don't keep it to yourself. Share your experience in the comments. Have you ever felt like something from the past still holds you back? Have you ever struggled to say goodbye? I want to hear your thoughts. And of course, if you want to keep diving into stories like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. See you in the next video.